Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is the 23rd of July, 2025, and yes, the subterfuge continues. How do they backpedal from their lies? Guess what, legacy media? Here's the words. You won't be trusted anymore. No. I tell you, folks, I've said it so many times before, there's no joy, and I told you so for either party. And there's so many of us who have been screaming from the rooftops for years and years, and of course we're labeled, we're doxxed, we're made fun of, we're insulted, we're called conspiracy theorists, anything that they can do to basically take away from anything that you have to say. Yeah, we all know conspiracy theorists. Yeah, thanks to the CIA's creation of that phrase shortly after JFK was assassinated. Of course, they could just call anybody a conspiracy theorist and negate their argument. Well, that's unfortunate, but that's the way they've been playing it. But it doesn't work anymore. It's sort of like the phrase anti-Semite. That's not working anymore either. Folks are starting to see through this subterfuge, this manipulation, this gaslighting, this propagandizing, this lying that we've been living with for a long, long time. And that song that I used to introduce the show, I mean, that was written almost, 30 years ago now. You won't be trusted anymore, dedicated to the mainstream networks and the media that have been lying and propagandizing for years. And it was basically in direct violation of the Smith-Mundt Act. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Smith-Mundt Act was, 1948. It was, as a matter of fact, I have a little clip here. Let me see if I can just play this thing about the Smith-Mundt Act. Okay, here we go. And what's really interesting is the Smith-Mundt Act came into being in 1948, and it was in place, which basically it made it illegal for the media to propagandize the American people. Now, they could propagandize overseas, if there's some sort of Cold War going on, and we knew there was back in the late 40s, early 50s. But it was illegal to propagandize and lie to the American people. Well, in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, I think it was 2013, Obama basically signed it. It was the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. Well, basically what it did is it just struck down the Smith-Mundt Act so that you could lie and propagandize and throw horse hockey at the American public. And I wonder how that fits into all the revelations that we're hearing about right now with the Obama administration. Well, anyway, let's revisit this issue about the Smith-Mundt Act. Here it is.
So in 2013, it was legalized in the United States to propagandize its citizens. What? Like, that's some scary third world stuff going on. That's the kind of stuff that people use to topple governments, to take away freedoms.
Yes, you heard that right. Almost a decade ago, propaganda was legalized in the United States with the passage of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which you've probably never heard of. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was buried in the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act for a good reason, because it repealed the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which authorized the State Department and the mainstream media to engage in propagandizing foreign countries, but it prohibited releasing that same propaganda in America for public consumption. This prohibition was lifted when the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was signed into law by Obama.
Very simply, Obama gave it a reboot in 2012. So, no matter how outrageous the propaganda may be, it's completely legal.
Propaganda, in other words, a false narrative for whatever specific purpose, is now much, much easier to perpetrate on the people.
Due to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which went into effect on July the 2nd of 2013, scripted and orchestrated propaganda can now be presented to the American public as factual news.
Yeah, so that came about in 2013. Now, let's see. That was under the Obama administration. Now, let's go through this a little bit. What happened the following year? Yeah, Ukraine was taken over. Yeah, they had this mock election. They inserted Zelensky and basically took out the duly elected president of Ukraine. And of course, they didn't report it properly to the American people, so they could continue to send their money, do their money laundering and their sex trafficking and the drug trafficking and the erection of all of those biological labs on the northern border of Ukraine right up against Russia. Of course, Putin wasn't too happy about that, and I don't blame him. I mean, if they got like 35 biological labs placed all along the border, how would we feel if our neighbors to the north of Canada had 35 or 40 biological labs being run by the Chinese? How would we feel about that? Okay, well, that's a totally different issue altogether. The issue here is that once Obama signed that NDAA back in 2013 and basically removed the Smith-Mundt Act, hey, anything goes. They could put anything out that they wanted. And isn't that convenient? Yeah, isn't that convenient? Well, I got to tell you, we are done. We are done. And there's a woman here that posted some of the responses since all this stuff is coming out, since Tulsi Gabbard has put out this information. I mean, this is, and President Trump was in a press conference yesterday basically saying the T word. Yeah, these people committed treason. Now, there's a lot of people that are screaming for arrests, and I'm right behind them. Yeah, and they're saying, yeah, well, if you're found guilty, you should spend the rest of your life in prison. I think maybe you need to check out exactly what the appropriate punishment for high treason is. And it's not about throwing, some high-ranking previous political pundit in a posh prison. No. You don't put them in prison. No. They're basically facing capital punishment, dare I say. Let the punishment fit the crime. And what's the punishment for high treason? As the last I checked, it was hanging by the neck until you're dead or facing firing squad. And I mean, the reason they have capital punishment is a deterrent to crime. Now, if you've got people that are committing treason all over the place and they know that they're not going to face the death penalty, they'll just continue committing the crime. I think we need to have that happen. I think it needs to be televised for not just the American people, for the entire world to see that, look, the United States is trying to build back its integrity because we've lost it. And as far as the mainstream media is concerned, like I said, we are done. Now, I'm just going to let this play. This is a woman basically looking at the headlines from the mainstream media. And I tell you, the mainstream legacy media, they're all in. They can't backtrack. They can't come back and say, well, yeah, we lied. They can't do that. They have to basically position themselves and either dig their heels in or somehow sidestep all of the fecal matter that's about to hit the air circulator pointing in that direction. Anyway, here's what this woman posted. Listen up.
Hi, people in charge of the news. My name's Rachel.
Hi,
I live in Iowa. And I just have a question. How stupid do you think we are? For instance, we have MSNBC here with Gabbard concocts odd treasonous conspiracy theory, eyes Russia probe prosecutions.
Okay, so MSNBC saying it's a wild conspiracy theory. Here we go.
And here's the kicker. Gabbard's new findings on the Trump-Russia scandal have been panned as, quote, ludicrous. Who? Who panned it as ludicrous?
They did.
Who? You, the news, did? We don't care what you think. Hi, Steve. Okay, I'm reading your article. At the bottom it says, she was recently questioned whether she should be medicated. Wow.
Okay, so they're trying to say that Tulsi Gabbard should be medicated for coming out with this stuff. Good try, guys.
Excellent journalism. And we have CNN. It's just wildly misleading. So if you have an American who is just your average American, they have kids, they have a job, and they don't have time to really research and look into what Tulsi Gabbard's saying or listen to her press conference, they're going to get their news from you. And guess what they're going to get? This BS.
I'm going to pause it again. I want to remind the legacy media what happened in the Nuremberg trials. Yeah, if you participated in the subterfuge, the manipulation, the lying, the propagandizing that created these problems, you're just as guilty. That's right. You too can be brought up on charges of treason. And this is not just having to do with with the Trump administration and the trumped up charges. This also has to do with election meddling. Yeah, and by the way, remember Executive Order 13818? You might look it up. It basically says in Section 3 that if you're found guilty of election interference, you can have all your assets seized. Yeah, that's what it says. And also in Executive Order 13848, having to do with crimes against humanity, which includes child trafficking. And again, both of those include propagandizing. Okay, if you're covering up for the crime, you're part of it. I've said it for years and years. As a matter of fact, it's the liner note on my first album. I said, if you become aware of a lie and you do nothing to expose the lie, you become part of the lie. You can't, silence is consent. But this goes way beyond silence. They were promoting and creating these fictitious stories as fact. And now they're having to backtrack. Well, actually, they're not backtracking. They're digging their heels in because there's nowhere for them to go. Continuing here.
And then we have another one. NBC, Trump's intelligence chiefs try to rewrite the history of the 2016 election. No, she's not trying to rewrite anything. She's trying to tell the truth, which is something you guys should try.
Yeah.
You've already lost all your credibility. But now you've lost it to a point where I think it's just going to have to be thrown into a dumpster and started on fire. I don't think you understand how so done we are with the mainstream media. We're so done with this. No more gaslighting, no more lies. We're done.
We're done. Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, for posting that. She echoes my sentiments exactly. And I have to tell you, my own personal life experience, this is one of the things that influenced me to become a talk show host. Because I was always a musician. I was, ever since I was in high school, I wanted to be in a rock band, the Beatles, the Stones, and the whole musical revolution and all that good stuff that was going on. And that was the brass ring that I was chasing. So I was playing guitar and singing. And yes, I do have a speaking voice. So I got into doing radio. I got my broadcaster's license in 1979. And after bouncing around in a few radio stations as a jock, and I started to do announcements at TV stations, commercials, narrations, etc., etc. And anyway, so that's how I got myself into broadcasting. And at one point, I was feeling very sad. I was having some very challenging personal problems in my life. And a friend of mine gave me a Bible. Now, I'm not here to proselytize or Bible beat or anything like that. And I was never, a religious person. But on this one particular occasion, I opened it up randomly, and it took me to Ezekiel chapter 33. And it said that God told the people to assign a watcher on the wall. And when the watcher sees the sword come upon the land, he's to blow the trumpet. If he sees the sword and blows the trumpet and the people don't listen, their blood is on their own head. However, if he sees the sword and blows not the trumpet, then their blood is on his head. And that's when, it hit me. Look, if I see the danger, if I see a lie, I can't allow that lie to stand. I have to challenge it. And I've lived by that. And that's what inspired me to become a talk show host. And, like I said, silence is consent, and I would not maintain my silence. And it broke my heart when I got into one of the first things that I witnessed was the Oklahoma City bombing. And that kicked off an entire dialogue with a lot of people. That's how I got to know Ted Gunderson. And anyway, I'm getting off the track here, but I just wanted to share with you why I took a stand or continue to take a stand. I will not lie. I'm not stupid, I'm not crazy, and I don't lie. And that's why I do the show, and I call this, I'm here with the facts, WTF. And when you hear the facts, then you exclaim, WTF, I didn't know that. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because, the legacy media, the mainstream media, your name is mud, absolute mud. Anyway, there are several other things I wanted to get to. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Here's one of the things I wanted to. I forget who this gentleman was. It's not Ryan Mata. It's his partner. I can't remember his name. But this is what it's like to try to have a conversation with people who've, had a steady diet of misinformation, disinformation, and lies. You got to remember that if this is their steady diet, if people out there are getting their information from the mainstream legacy media, like I said, if you consume intellectual fecal matter, you end up with stuff for brains. And you can't even argue with these people. This is how a conversation goes with people who have constantly consumed mainstream media, BS, and horse hockey and propaganda.
Well, I think I'm finally able to define what it is I've been experiencing for close to 10 years now whenever I get into a conversation with someone who is woke. Now, I don't mean someone who's liberal. I mean someone who is proudly woke. You see, I'm trying to debate, and they are trying to diagnose. Let me give you an example. Let's say I were to say something crazy like, I'm open to immigration. I just think it should be legal. I also think we need a strong border, and we need significant immigration reform before we continue. Oh, so you're xenophobic. No, I don't have an irrational fear or hatred toward other people or cultures, but I do believe that culture matters. And if you're coming from a cultural tradition which has very, very different customs, traditions, and legal standards than the United States, well, that might not be the best for social cohesion, especially when it comes in the form of mass illegal immigration. Oh, so you're racist. No, I don't believe in the inherent superiority or inferiority of any person based off of their race. I think people should be judged based off of their individual actions and character. But let me give you an example to clarify my position. If you were to mass import people from a country where they believe that it's perfectly reasonable to criminally prosecute women for showing their hair in public, that might not lead to the best blending with American society. You get what I mean? Oh, yeah, so you're Islamophobic. Okay, I see what you're doing now. This is not about even trying to understand my arguments or perspective. This is all about trying to incorrectly diagnose me so you can then ignore all of my arguments and perspectives. And if that's what you're going to do, what's the point in talking to you?
Yeah, that's a good explanation. And because that is the way it goes. I've had conversations very similar to that, and that's the first thing people try to do is say, oh, you're a homophobe, or you're an Islamophobe, or you're an anti-Semite, or you're a this, or you're that. They want to diagnose you so that they can negate anything that you have to say. And this is a direct result of constantly watching the legacy media. I tell you, I want to see this whole thing. I want to see the whole thing just burn down. I want to see CBS. They just settled, by the way, with President Trump in regard to that 60 Minutes mess, with Kamala Harris completely editing the whole thing. Yeah. So anyway, the media is, no wonder their ratings are all the way down. I mean, last I heard a year or so ago, they said that the Hallmark Channel had better ratings than CNN. Well, hallelujah on that one. So anyways, there's a lot of stuff that is coming out. Let me see. I've got several clips here. Which one do I do next? Okay, attorney Peter Ticken. He was in Colorado. And, of course, the big thing that's going on there is Tina Peters, who is in jail right now for doing her job to oversee the election. Yeah, she found all kinds of problems in the election, the voting machines, and the whole system was completely corrupt. So rather than investigate it, they convicted her. Okay, but anyway, Peter Ticken, outside of the courthouse, had this to say, and he's quite a high-ranking attorney in these issues. Listen to what he had to say.
Mr. Ticken, the Department of Justice issued a statement of interest in this case respective to weaponization of government.
Right.
What's your level of confidence that that's actually an ongoing investigation, and will it go beyond 2 years?
Remember I just said that I quoted Barack Obama for probably the only thing I'll ever quote him for. That election has its consequences. The worst mistake that they ever made was losing the election. Okay? Not that they could help it, but the fact is that losing the election puts those who didn't cheat in a position to find those that did. And that nobody's stopping on this. Nobody's giving it up. Nobody thinks that, everything will be okay. We give them another chance. If they ever take over, the weaponization that I'm finding in terms of what they've done, in terms of not just the J6ers, not just the people that are close to the president, like Peter Navarro and so on, not just the people that are involved in cyber currencies, who they also went after, but they went after police, and they went after the upper middle class. There are men all over and women all over this country who have had prosecutions against them needlessly when they're basically innocent people. And I'm finding all of these people that come into me, and I'm dealing with them, and we're finding that weaponization by the Biden administration, meaning the people that were controlling the Biden administration, was nothing short of evil. And it's stopping here, and not only stopping, but we can never let them get back. We can never let them do it again, because those will seem like the good old days if they ever get back in power.
I think that's certainly true for us here in Colorado. Those of us in Colorado are aware that Tina Peters is part of a portfolio of crime, a portfolio of weaponization, I should say, that the government did in Elbert County. There was cases in Douglas County. Same thing, same timeline, same people attacking basically Trump supporters, election deniers, and whatnot. We would like to see some justice for that. What would you say to the Tina Peters supporters to effectively set expectations on this?
The truth comes out. Lawyers have a saying, the truth will out. And we have that saying because it does. It takes time sometimes, but justice is going to be well served. And she personally is truly an American hero. She's suffering now. Hopefully we'll get that to end as soon as we can. We will end that. But she's done a great deal just by being the good person that she is.
Okay, I think that Tina Peters deserves a presidential pardon. I think that she needs to be released. And I think that this whole thing has got to be exposed. Because what happened over the past 10 years, actually more than that, like I said, this goes all the way back to the Obama administration. And he signed the NDAA with the Smith-Mundt modernization, making this propaganda legalized. And this was setting the table for them to do and say anything that they want and present it as fact to the American people and to the world. Well, now, all of this stuff is starting to come out, and James Clapper, one of the scumbags that were involved with this whole thing, he's throwing Obama under the bus. And he was being interviewed, and here's what he had to say. The rats are jumping shit, folks. Here he is.
President Obama, we might not have done the intelligence community assessment that we did that set off a whole sequence of events which are still unfolding today. President Obama is responsible for that, and it was he who tasked us to do that intelligence community assessment in the first place. It was he who tasked us to do that intelligence community assessment.
In other words, I was only following orders. Where have we heard that before? I'm sorry, Mr. Clapper, but you're just as guilty. But they're all fingers are pointing back to Obama. I want to know who Obama's handlers were. That's what I want to know. Who put him in a position like that? Who covered for him with the fraudulent birth certificate? Who covered for him as he was clawing his way up the political ladder? Who put him in a position to become senator in Illinois? Who moved him forward to become president? I want to know who the movers and shakers were behind Obama. Maybe we'll get to it. But first, we got to go through all of these monsters. We have to work our way through this. As a matter of fact, there is an even deeper plot. Now, remember, under the Biden Harris administration, and yes, under the Obama administration, or shall I say, was it the Biden-Obama administration? Or maybe it was just the Obama, or parentheses, Obama, quote, Biden-Harris administration. Who the heck was running things there? All the stuff is starting to come out now about the auto pen, so who is behind that? And look at the visitors log at the White House. Do you know how many times Obama was in there? He was on there on almost a daily basis. What the heck is he doing there? You're not even president anymore. But anyway, things are getting really hot and hairy. As a matter of fact, Nino's Corner, he's a podcaster, and he's been out there for quite some time. He was reading some of the documents that have been released by Tulsi Gabbard, and this goes into planned assassination. They were planning to take out President Trump. They didn't want him to go into office when he won the election in 2016. He was going to be inaugurated in January of 2017 and take office. They didn't want that to happen. Listen to this.
Tulsi Gabbard breaks news. Wow. DNI Tulsi Gabbard confirms former President Obama authorized assassination attempt on Trump. Washington, D.C., July 21st, 2025. In what may become the most explosive revelation in U.S. political history, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announced that declassified intelligence files directly implicate former President Barack Obama in authorizing a covert assassination attempt on then President-elect Donald Trump. The files set to be publicly released detail a sprawling top-secret program initiated in the final 30 days of Obama's presidency with explicit goal of preventing Trump from ever taking office. Operation Silence was not just surveillance. It was an organized multi-agency plot to eliminate the president-elect, Gabbard said during an emergency intelligence briefing. The documents outline everything from recruitment of black ops teams to manipulation of communications to the final phase of physical removal. According to sources close to the investigation, a failed attempt on Trump's life was thwarted only days before the inauguration thanks to an anonymous whistleblower inside the National Security Command Center. Redacted transcripts reveal that Obama, under the pretense of national security, convened an off-the-books task force of senior intelligence officials and military advisors at Camp David. In late December, one document marked Eyes Only 44 reads, "The threat Trump poses to institutional instability cannot be overstated. Removal, if necessary, is justified."
Whoa.
While Obama has not commented publicly, legal teams are reportedly mobilizing behind the scenes as the files prepare to go public. The country teeters on the edge of political reckoning, and the question now isn't whether there was a plot, but how far it went and who else was involved. Folks, this is getting real.
Yes, it is getting real. Now, keep in mind, this is not just about, the subterfuge and the propaganda. I mean, we see how many different precedents, whatever, were set under the Obama administration and the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, they just did everything that they could, lawfare, left and right. What did they do to America? They went after mothers who had the audacity to go to the school board meeting and speak up against the woke agenda that's being shoved down their kids' throats. They were labeled domestic terrorists. I mean, it wasn't just going after Trump and his administration. It was going after the American people. And the American people knew that the 2020 election stunk to high heaven. And, of course, the January 6th committee. This has all been garbage. I mean, there's so much of it to go through. But as a matter of fact, excuse me, let me see. I already played that clip. I got this clip. I got that clip. Let me see. There's so many other things here. John Mearsheimer, excuse me. John, he was looking at the situation that's going on over there in Gaza. And again, this whole thing, would not have happened if Trump had been in office. This whole thing that was going on, this starvation, this annihilation of human beings over there in the Gaza Strip. And don't you dare say, "Oh, you're a Hamas supporter." It's not about supporting Hamas. That's a weak argument. "Oh, you're an anti-Semite." No. Israel is not defending itself. Israel is exterminating an entire population. And John Mearsheimer had this to say about it.
The more time goes by, Judge, and I hate to say this, and I say it reluctantly, but I believe it's true, the Israelis look like the Nazis. Their rhetoric, their behavior, it's truly appalling. And it's hard to believe that a Jewish state is behaving much the way the Third Reich did in the 30s and 40s.
And the argument is now being made that the label of the most evil man in history, of course, everybody says Hitler, genocide, and he was the most evil dictator in history. Well, it looks like Netanyahu has been vying for that position. He may have even surpassed it. As a matter of fact, when I get back from this quick break, I got a little bit more on that particular subject.
Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula is used by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now, the Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers. Hey, if you got an engine, then Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, and lawn service companies, Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your big rig around the town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack on sale at GetMoreTank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code REDPILL101 and get 10% off. Save your money, save your engine, save the earth at GetMoreTank.com. Get More Tank is EPA registered, doesn't void warranties, results vary.
And as always, you can get More Tank by visiting our website, TheWTFReports.com. Click on the sponsors page, and there's a window that'll pop up. It'll take you to the website of Get More Tank, and you can read all the specifications and how it works, why it works, and why you should be using Get More Tank. So, and you use the promo code REDPILL101, you'll get 10% off, which means for $20, you get 5 tablets, 1 tablet per tank. Once you've conditioned your engine, you're going to get 15 to 20% mileage increase, depending upon your make, model, and year of vehicle. So this is a no-brainer. It's a win-win situation. So, folks, get More Tank. You won't be sorry. I promise you that. And while you're there, you might want to check out the Wave Watch as well. I mean, I've been using that now for over a year, and I'm benefiting from that. I've actually loaned it out to a couple of people. They didn't want to give it back. But anyway, you'll get $100 off if you use the promo code REDPILL100 if you're going to order the Wave Watch. Do some research, and you'll figure out exactly how and why that works as well. And I wouldn't be, promoting these products if I didn't firmly believe in them. So, because I value my integrity. I'm not just going to grab and start selling anything just because I can make some money on it. Because I've already been down that road, and I know exactly what happens. Because eventually your show turns into an infomercial because you get addicted to the money. I'm not here about the money, and I'm not here for the accolades and the praise and the ego strokes. I'm here to tell you the truth. So anyway, that's why I need your support. And if you believe in what I'm doing here with the WTF reports, hey, make a donation. We've got a GoFundMe going on there because it costs money to get all these platforms going. And I do want to morph this into an actual podcast on cameras and stuff like that. But that requires hardware, software, and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to support the effort, then you can make a donation. You can also make a donation and pick up one of the baseball caps or coffee mugs, T-shirts. We have some of that stuff as well. So I appreciate it, and appreciate your support. All right, that said, we're moving out of the topic here. We're going to have to see how this, with this Obama revelation, all the stuff that's coming out, we're going to see if we're going to actually start seeing arrests. I don't want to hear congressional hearings. No, I don't want to hear a special counsel, special investigatory panel. I don't want to hear about indictments. No. We have to see some arrests. We have to see some convictions. We have to see it. We're never going to have faith in our government unless we see some serious accountability, and we're talking about charges of high treason, and we all know what the penalty for treason is. And I'm sorry for the liberals out there that are in denial. Hey, you guys supported this stuff. And it's not really your fault because you were propagandized. You were lied to. You were manipulated. You were gaslit. Orange man bad. Where did all that come from? Yeah, I know he's not a saint. He's been involved in some shady activities in the past. But I mean, my gosh, you can't compare, that to what the Obama administration and what the Democratic Party has done. It's just, it's not apples and oranges. It's apples and adjustable wrenches. I mean, it's just, there's no comparison. But as a matter of fact, there's a broadcaster, she calls herself Crystal Ball, and she's recognizing this whole thing. You can't call her an anti-Semite because she makes the following statement. Here she is.
I did not know that we lived in a world where we could watch 2 million people be starved to death, and that would just happen. I didn't know we lived in that world. We apparently live in that world. To be honest with you, like what Israel is doing is even more cartoonishly villainous than the cartoon version of Israel as an evil country that is portrayed in Superman. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how humanity comes back from such a thing. That's where we are. The world is standing by as a genocide, ethnic cleansing, and mass starvation campaign unfolds before our eyes, and I don't even know what to say about it anymore.
And I'm ashamed that so many Americans are just sitting on their hands. They're not saying a doggone thing. You know, everybody relates to, you know, whenever you see a dictator or something like that, the left has been calling Trump a Nazi. That call him Hitler. Hitler, oh yeah, Hitler, you're a Hitler, did it? Well, guess what? I think Hitler will be dethroned as the most evil person in the world. I think in the future, when the truth comes out and when the trials, crimes against humanity are exposed, they won't be screaming Hitler anymore. They'll be screaming Netanyahu. Sorry, Benjamin Netanyahu, you have earned that. You really have. As a matter of fact, I thought this was kind of interesting. There was a Catholic priest who was telling a story. Unfortunately, I don't know what the gentleman's name is. He's got his priest's garb on. It looks Orthodox to me. I don't know. But anyway, he shared the following story having to do with something that happened in World War II. Listen to this.
In 1941, the Germans forced us to dig a long, deep trench. And after we did what they wanted, they brought a group of Jews and threw them into the trench. And the Germans ordered us to bury them alive.
Okay, I'm going to pause it. The Germans were talking to some Russians, okay? And so they told the Russians to dig the trench, all right? So here it goes.
We firmly, these are the Russian prisoners, we firmly rejected this disgusting act. The Germans ordered us to take the Jews out from the trench, and they threw us into the trench instead of the Jews. And they ordered the Jews to bury us alive. We were shocked when the Jews began to bury us without hesitation. The Jews almost covered us when the Germans stopped them and pulled us out, and we were surprised by the German commander who shouted at us, "We wanted to show you, to prove to you who the Jews are. They are ungrateful, merciless, and without love."
Isn't that interesting? It's sort of, if the shoe fits, merciless without love, they're brutal. Look what's going on in Gaza. If the shoe fits, wear it, as they say. Oh, man, what a mess, huh? What a mess. Let me see here. John Mearsheimer. Oh, yeah, Catherine Austin. I'm sorry, I'm sort of all over the map here. There's so much to go through. Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about tyranny and how we're falling into tyranny. And by the way, yes, there are movers and shakers behind the scenes. And we're just sort of hinting as to who these influencers are in our government. And I'll give you one guess anyway.
When the central bankers of the G7 nations went into the room in Jackson Hole in August 2019 and they voted on the Going Direct Reset, everything that's happening to us right now is part of the Going Direct Reset, and they voted on it. It was a plan. Okay? So they wrote a plan. They decided to do this. So they've been engaged in the financial coup for 20 years. We're now coming into the end game. They have to consolidate the financial coup, and they vote on the Going Direct Reset. And with that one decision, they made a decision over the next year to put 500 million people out of work. That's the equivalent of dropping several nuclear bombs around the world. That's financial warfare. And they made it intentionally, they made it knowingly, and it was a plan. And what is very important to understand when you think about this pandemic is people are not dying from magic viruses. People are dying from tyranny. They're dying from a great poisoning that's part of that tyranny. But our problem, and the thing we need to be afraid of, is tyranny, because the tyranny is about to get much, much worse. And it's the passports and that system of central bank digital control that will give them the ability to do that.
See, everything is connected, folks. You know, she's talking about, economic warfare, economic tyranny. And it's all connected to the same movers and shakers. Now, of course, we've been spending a lot of time talking about Obama and that administration, and it's all coming out about Crossfire Hurricane. It's all coming about the Hillary Clinton emails. It's all coming out about the election fraud. It's all coming out about the pandemic. It's all coming out on all these different fronts. And it has to come out. And that also gets into the trafficking thing, which in my mind is like it is like the most important issue facing humanity right now. But as a matter of fact, there was a woman that was testifying before Congress. Her name is Tara Lee Rhodes, and she put it all out there. This is her testimony before Congress. Listen to this.
When the central bankers of the G7 nations...
Oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go. There we go. This is it.
Members of the committee, it is an honor to be here. I thank you for the invitation to share my testimony. My goal is to inspire action to safeguard the lives of migrant children, including the staggering 85,000 that are missing. Today, children will work overnight shifts at slaughterhouses, factories, restaurants to pay their debts to smugglers and traffickers. Today, children will be sold for sex. Today, children will call a hotline to report they are being abused, neglected, and trafficked. And we don't know if they're going to get the help they need. For nearly a decade, unaccompanied children have been suffering in the shadows. And I have to confess, I knew nothing about their suffering until 2021, when I volunteered to help the Biden administration with the crisis at the southern border. As part of Operation Artemis, I was deployed to the Pomona Fairplex Emergency Intake Site in California to help HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, reunite children with sponsors in the United States. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off of the lives of children. As for me, my interest is the safety of the children. I do not view this as a political issue. I view this as a humanitarian issue. I assure you, my motives are the highest and best. I want the children protected. So I want to tell you some of what I witnessed personally at the Pomona Fairplex. I saw vulnerable indigenous children from Guatemala who speak Mayan dialects and cannot speak Spanish. That means they cannot ask for help in English. They cannot ask for help in Spanish. They become captives of their sponsors. I have sat with case managers as they've cried to tell me the horror of what has happened to children as they make the journey to this country. I saw apartment buildings where 20, 30, and 40 unaccompanied minors have been released. I saw sponsors trying to simultaneously sponsor children from multiple ORR sites at one time. I saw sponsors using multiple addresses to obtain sponsorships of children. And I saw numerous cases of children in debt bondage, and the child knew they had to stay with the sponsor until the debt was paid. Realizing that we were not offering the children the American dream, but instead putting them in modern-day slavery with wicked overlords, was a terrible revelation. A terrible revelation. These children are a captive victim population with no access to law enforcement or knowledge of their rights. They are extorted, abused, neglected. And that is why I blew the whistle in 2021. I witnessed firsthand the horrors of child trafficking and exploitation. My life will never be the same after what I saw.
Yeah, I believe that. I absolutely believe it. And like I said, this human trafficking issue is right at the top of the list as far as priorities in my mind are concerned. And we have to look back over the last administration, getting back to this issue about treason. Okay, what was it? Jean-Pierre was the press secretary. Oh, the border is closed. Yes, there's no truth in the idea that the border is open. Kamala Harris, she was the border czar. And she was saying, yes, the border is secure. And then, of course, there's Alejandro Mayorkas. Yes, Homeland Security. Okay, and he said, yeah, the border is secure. They lied. They lied. They created the pipeline to bring these children in here. Now, why do you suppose they would do that? Yeah, there's a lot of money. Lots of money. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Yeah, but who was behind that? Who is behind opening all this? Who's planning? Who's behind the scenes? Who is, manipulating all of these elected individuals to do what they're doing? And what is their methodology? What tools do they use to make these elected officials and appointed officials do what they do?
Bribery, coercion, blackmail.
Okay, the first word is bribery, also known as lobbying. Well, we all know that everybody's sort of like taking a good hard look at one particular group that lobbies your elected officials, influences them, pays them off. So the first word is bribery, and that's, of course, like I just said, lobbying. The next one is coercion.
Yes, if you don't vote this way, it'd be a shame if something happened to your daughter.
Yeah, that's coercion. And I know that happens because I firsthand, back in the 90s when I was in Colorado with Joyce, and we were stumping for the Gulf War veterans, we approached one of the senators and said, why aren't you doing anything? You sat on this panel in the Senate report. These guys were exposed to chemicals and biologicals and experimental drugs and pills and vaccines. Why aren't you standing up for these guys and getting them some help? And his response was, I have a 15-year-old daughter and I want to make sure she has a sweet 16th birthday party. That's how it works. So we got bribery, coercion, and then that final word is blackmail. Yeah. Well, then maybe that's why all of a sudden they don't want to talk about the Epstein files anymore. That's going to be coming out too. We got a lot of stuff, a lot of crap that we're going to have to work through in the coming months, folks, and hopefully we'll make it out the other side. I don't know. But there are people out there that, of course, are labeled, as, Nazis because you're conservative. Rob Schneider, bless his heart, the guy was real funny. I saw him on TV, 10, 15 years ago, but now he's become an activist, and he spoke at one of the big conferences recently, and this is what he had to say. Listen up.
I'm privileged and honored to be with all of you today, and I can say with pride and with humility that because of the young American patriots like yourselves, the communist attack on the United States disguised as woke tolerance has failed. The plan was to divide us again by race, create turmoil and confusion in every aspect of society so that chaos would be so overwhelming that we would trade something that we cherished to regain a sense of calm and order. That's something that we were asked to trade for. To trade for the sense of calm was, of course, our freedom. But America's freedom, earned through blood, is not for sale at any price. And let me tell you something that is also no longer for sale in America. Thanks to the Trump administration, American farmland is no longer for sale. Thanks to President Trump's administration, Communist China can no longer own farmland in the United States of America. Now do Bill Gates next. What we are experiencing is not a revolution, but a counter-revolution against the Democratic Party that tried to tear apart the very fabric of this great nation. I don't know if we truly realize how close we came to losing everything our founding fathers fought and died for. Another 4 years of open borders and another 10 million people coming in across our borders would have been enough to turn the United States into a forever blue California-style hole. With every major city flooded with homeless encampments, drug addicts, and illegal migrants from every corner of the world. The question was, and still is, will President Trump and this movement be just a minor setback, a speed bump to the eventual global tyranny of social credit systems where every transaction made by citizens will be tracked and approved or unapproved by banks and by government that tracks everything that each and every one of us say and do? Could the United States and this greatest experiment in freedom the world has ever known be just this 250-year blip in human history enjoyed by the very few and fortunate in world history before the human race returned to feudalism? Thankfully, God has other plans. And as long as we are a nation under God, we will always be free. Our unparalleled freedom is why the United States is the creative, technological, and financial engine of the world. Well, my fellow Americans, how do we continue to move this counter-revolution forward? Luckily, the Democratic Party has provided a map for us. And if we just do the exact opposite of what the Democrats did, we will be free for another 1,000 years.
All right. Well, I don't know about that. I don't want to do the exact opposite. If they were utilizing lawfare to go after all of the conservatives out there, maybe, like I said, they set the precedents over and over and over and over again by arresting this guy and that guy and throwing this guy in the slammer and having a January 6th non-committee and all this other stuff. And I didn't even touch into the issue about the hokey pokey thingy dingy today and the lawsuits that are going on overseas in Holland. I mean, all of it's starting to come out, folks. All I can do at this point is say, folks, we need to pray. We need to get back in touch with our inner self and our connection with the Almighty. And that's, I think that's the only way, because we are dealing with a battle between good and evil in the world. It's not just here in the United States. Look what's going on in Europe. What's going on in China. I mean, it's all over the world. There is a great awakening happening. There is a shift happening, an elevation of consciousness. A lot of people are very confused by it, and yours truly as well. How does it work? How is this thing going to play out? How are we going to rid ourselves with the hypocrisy, the corruption, the vile evil that's out there? Sex trafficking, Satan worshiping, child sacrifice. It's all going to be exposed. And it has to be exposed. Anyway. All right. Well, got through a lot of clips today. Oh my gosh. Covering a lot of territory. Anyway, I hope that you're enjoying this broadcast, and if you are, please, if you're listening on Rumble or BitChute or YouTube or any platform, please click like, share, and subscribe. You know, we've got to grow this listenership, get some people out there with some smarts in their head, you know? Remember, if you constantly consume a steady diet of misinformation, disinformation, and lies, that means your opinions are extensions of the lies. So let's deal with the truth for once in a while. All right, that said, we're going to be out of here for this Wednesday edition of the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist. I'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. So until then, stay safe, stay free. God bless you all, and I'll see you tomorrow.